welcome to the 27th edition of the Time of the Writer Festival presented by the Centre for Creative Arts at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Our festival theme for this year is Reflections, Resonance, and Re-envisioning. My guest for this afternoon is the magnificent Carolyn Steyn, founder and champion of the 67 Blankets movement in South Africa. This afternoon, we're going to be talking to Carolyn to find out more about the movement itself. We're also going to try to get behind her championing spirit, what drives her to be at the forefront of this dynamic movement, but we're also going to be tapping into the 10th anniversary book produced by Carolyn and her team. We're going to talk about why the book is such an essential part for preserving our archive and for understanding how other philanthropy movements could learn from this incredible movement that has achieved so much, even to the extent of winning certain Guinness Book of Rewards acknowledgements. Carolyn, welcome to the Time of the Writer Festival. It's wonderful to have you at the festival and on our program. I'm going to start off with a story that you've told before and one which is at the heart of the 67 Movement's blanket, your passion and your love for Nelson Mandela, and particularly in this year when we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of our democracy and constantly reflecting on the legacy of Nelson Mandela. I want you to talk to us about how you found this passion for this incredible leader.
Well, first of all, Ismail, thank you so much for the platform. It's an honor to be part of your Time of the Writer Festival. Really, really a huge honor for me. So 67 Blankets started, as you mentioned, 10 years ago. And it was a challenge presented to me by Zelda Lachlansi, Mandela's assistant for many years. And we'd just lost our beloved Madiba on the 5th of December, 2013. And though my husband had been in the hospital in a coma, not expected to survive. So when he did come out, he wasn't very well, but it was his birthday on December 19th, and I decided to have just a few people around the lunch table to celebrate his birthday. And one of the people at the table was Zelda Lachlansi. And of course, the conversation was about memories of Madiba, the times that we spent with him. Doe and Madiba had a very, very tight father-son relationship. And it was a beautiful bond that they shared. And, how we were going to keep Madiba's legacy alive. What are we going to do on Mandela Day the following year, 2014? Mandela Day, as many people know, is on July 18th, his birthday. It's a day recognized by the United Nations. It's a global initiative whereby people are encouraged globally to spend 67 minutes of their day doing something to help someone less fortunate or someone in a difficult situation. So immediately Zelda, and I don't know where she got it from because I'm not domesticated, she said, make 67 blankets for Mandela Day. And it was light-hearted banter in one ear, out the other. And then my sister Sharon arrived on Christmas Day with a bag of wool and a crochet hook, reminding me of my pledge. And so this is what I carry about each day, crocheting. I'm busy making another blanket. So
right.
I'm living up to that pledge. However, I realized very quickly on Christmas Day, I wasn't going to be able to make 67 blankets on my own. I didn't have 67 friends. And now look. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, literally 3 o'clock, I put it out on Facebook. You were there.
Yes, I recall that wonderful moment late at night, early morning.
And Bridget was also up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And there we are.
We're talking about Bridget van Werle. Yes.
And talking about, come on, Ismail, come on, Grumpy Town, Grahamstown. Let's get the word out and see if other people can join Carolyn in this mission to make 67 blankets. So you and Bridget were the first respondents. And when I did wake up a few hours later, it was amazing. That's when I learned about the power, the real power of social media, the power of the hashtag, and certainly the power of Nelson Mandela combined. It's a force to be reckoned with. I mean, I had no idea then that we'd be having this conversation 10 years later.
And you aim to only produce 67 blankets, but you've
Yes.
produced hundreds of thousands of blankets over the 10
Okay,
years.
so we didn't make 67 blankets. We didn't make 160. No, we've made 167,000 blankets
Right.
that we distributed over the past 10 years, and that is in South Africa alone. So we're global. We've got chapters in the United States, in England, in Guatemala, of all places, and certainly we engaged with the most incredible woman the other day who has 27 women, a group of 27 women from countries from I mean, all over the world. So they
Mm.
all joined forces and they're going to represent their countries when they go back. It's
Right.
quite amazing.
And what is particularly amazing about the way people engage with the project is that it goes across race, it goes across class, it
Yeah.
goes across any kind of division. It is a phenomenal movement that's literally brought people, not just women, but also men together. And I want to talk to you specifically about the way in which you ventured into prisons as
Yeah.
part of a rehabilitative process to bring men, prisoners in particular, to be able to engage with knitting both as a rehabilitative tool, but also as a way of giving back. Do you want to share some of that with us?
Well, I always had this knowledge that there are many prisoners in our country with time on their hands. And when I thought of 67 blankets going for a Guinness World Record for the largest crochet blanket in the world, you know, I engaged with school children, um, uh, women, men, but there's this group of people living behind bars that need something to do and they can help. And you know, I think if you put something out into the universe, and I'm not like a woo woo wow wow person, but it happened. My thinking developed into the reality of me going to prison, spending time with prisoners, inmates, serving life sentences. Started out at Zonderwater Maximum Correctional Center, and I met with a group of men around a boardroom table. Now, Carolyn was just like so dumb. You know, there I am sitting at this boardroom table with 10 men. Everybody's in orange uniform, but as you enter the prison, there are people sweeping and cleaning. They're all wearing orange uniform. And it did not occur to me that I was seated with people that were there for crime. I thought, you know, these are officials. And
Wonderful.
when I
Yes.
spoke to the person next to me, who looked like a librarian, he was a small man with little glasses perched on his nose, looked very academic. I said, so what do you do here? And he said, I'm here for 2 counts of armed robbery and murder.
And I'm
And I
sure your heart must have
light bulb,
shaken in that moment.
but it was really, I could have been at a boardroom table at Anglo American. I mean, the
Yes.
level of discussion was just so intelligent and I want to say academic.
Right. But
And
Carol, that is something that is so marvelous about you in that you're able to reach out to people one would least expect. Apart from the prisoners, you've also been able to reach out to many, many schools where you have school clubs knitting blankets. Do you want to talk to us about that, and particularly about the school that you also schooled at, uh,
yeah.
the Jappy Girls High, because they've become such incredible supporters of this movement?
Yeah, so I hadn't been back to school since I matriculated about 10 years ago. And the headmistress, well, Sybil Bhagwan, who's a friend of Saoirse Naidu, suggested I go and introduce 67 blankets to the girls at JP High School for Girls. And I did so. Met the headmistress, Dina Gonzalez, the late Dina Gonzalez, who is just a force. I mean, she took 67 blankets for Nelson Mandela Day to different heights. She got every girl in the school making blankets. I'd say over the past 10 years, JP High School for Girls have contributed over 6,000 blankets. It's just maybe, you know, Ismail, probably even more.
Right.
Uh, they would have the numbers. So going back to school was I think quite profound for me because I never saw myself back at school. I never saw myself in squatter camps. I never saw myself in prisons. I certainly, what Zelda presented to me that day on Doe's birthday, I have to say was the biggest gift given to me in my entire life. It's
Mm.
changed my world, and it's given me purpose and drive. In fact, Mrs. Michelle, Nelson Mandela's widow, said to me a few years ago, "My dear, you do realize that you found your calling." And she's exactly right. My life used to be about me, Carolyn. What am I going to do? Who am I going to have lunch with? Where am I going to shop? And certainly this is, it's a real life. And I'm very proud of the people that I work with on our Exco team. We have a board. I must tell you, when 67 Blankets started, I did not know what Exco meant. I'd never heard it.
Right.
And we've got ambassadors around South Africa and globally who run with the project, who galvanize people from, as you mentioned, from all walks of life, all races, religions, socioeconomic backgrounds, men, women, children, and they do phenomenal work. Without these individuals, 67 Blankets wouldn't be. So I'm very grateful, and I have huge respect for the people who have really placed us on the map, as it were.
Right. Carolyn, you talked about the ambassadors, and of course, you have these ambassadors who become kind of regional coordinators. You distribute the blankets through them, or they become collection points, but they
Mm.
also become information points. How important is that? How can other organizations that work in the philanthropy space model themselves on the success of of 67 Blankets, because you really have a remarkable model here, uh,
Mm.
in the sense that everyone gives voluntarily and passionately, but you also have this incredible capacity to remember the name of almost every single person that is part of this movement. How do you manage that?
I think I tend to spend every day with them. Social media is such a driving force that, when you switch on your iPad or your computer or your phone in the morning and you go through 67 Blankets, you meet the people every single day, because those ambassadors are the ones that you you know, I don't have great talent. I never made it as a theater actress or, a film star. But my talent, I've discovered at this age, is that and it's a big talent,
Mm,
I have a talent for spotting talent.
right. I want
So,
to pick up. I want to pick up the question about talent in a short while and
yeah,
about you becoming a star. But I'm going to let you complete that thought.
yes. So the ambassadors have really taken us on various journeys. And in a sense, whereas I started 67 Blankets, they are
Mm,
running with it. And in the past year, I've followed them.
mm,
So we've had, as you know, our 67 Blankets, local blankets is Lekker Roadshow. And each ambassador around the country was tasked with putting on a big event, because we've always done something great. We've laid out blankets of the union buildings as far as the eye can see in every direction. That was our
right.
first Guinness World Record. We created the massive Mandela masterpiece at Zonderwater Maximum Correctional Center. That was just phenomenal. We've got satellite images of the face of Nelson Mandela. It was so big, covering 2 rugby
Right.
fields. You could not see Madiba's face on the
Mm,
ground. You actually had to go up into the
mm,
helicopter or via satellite.
right.
So the past year, I have gone to all regions and
Mm,
seen the work that the ambassadors have done, and they have put on unique, brilliant exhibitions of blankets and combined, like I like to do. I love talented people,
right.
um, performers, poets, dancers, you name it. People that
Right.
that speak so beautifully, like yourself. You've got a lot to say, and it's profound. And I love the way you engage with 67 Blankets on Facebook, on social media, and the fact that you've contributed to our book. And thank you for your beautiful, beautiful words. So last year we had a number of those big events with 67
Right.
Blankets. And
Cool.
so the ambassadors have really taken us very, very far.
I'm going to move slightly away from the project itself or the movement itself, because we know of its incredible achievements, the numerous Guinness Book of Records accolades that you've got and put your name in, entrenched in there as a South African champion. You spoke earlier about not having talent, and that's why you're not in the big name and in theatre arts. But I know the real secret to that. You have an enormous amount of talent, and when you did perform, you were an enormous success. Circumstance took you away from being a performer. You did get out of South Africa to chase the limelight, and you were going to hit the limelight, but personal circumstances drove you back to South Africa on two occasions. Once with your your late dad, and second with your mum. And of course, it seemed as if fate was writing its story for you. It wanted you in a different way. It wanted you to come back to South Africa to be able to make this incredible contribution that you do, and for which we're incredibly grateful. But I want to delve into that personal, because I find the story about your mum particularly important in the way it shaped your own life as well. But let's get to that. Let's talk about that chasing the dream to become the actress in the US, and how you came back to South Africa on two occasions.
Well, certainly my entire life, all I ever wanted was to be on stage, or, performing in front of a camera. That was the be all and end all of my world. And I went to LA, and I did work. I did a couple of things, and I did some stage productions. The one that I loved the most was Private Lives, the Noel Coward playing
Yes.
Sybil. And so that was wonderful. And then I got cast in The Odd Couple #2, the movie, playing either Jack Lemmon or Walter Matthau's daughter. I've never seen the film because I didn't do it. My mom was given a few months to live, and I got a call to say, how quickly can you get back to South Africa? And I spoke to the director, Howie Deutsch. I said, and it was before we started filming. And I said, my mom's not well. And he said, Carolyn, go. I will always use you. So with that in mind, I thought, okay, I have to go. And there were certain people who said, how can you let this opportunity, pass you by? But I wouldn't have had it any other way. I got to spend 3 months with my mom, and then my life really changed. The roots. I'm a South African. I was born in South Africa. I never felt completely at home in LA over a period of 10 years. When I came back, my roots kind of found their way back into South Africa. So, and then of course I met Doe, and then one thing led to the other, and then there's 67 blankets, and that certainly has given me purpose. And
right. Can I want to talk a little more about your mum, because that is a book waiting to be written, the story about your mum and your relationship with your mum, because you did grow up not under the easiest of circumstances as well. Your life was very, very different. Your mum, for example, did not grow up in, just with everything at her disposal. She went through her own little challenges and struggles. And you've been one of the very few, very bold people to come out and to talk about the fact that your mum was in a home and so forth. And there was this really emotional moment where you had to revisit the home to take some blankets to that home. Let's talk about that, because I think it's such a human story that we often tend to forget about people.
So my mom, I don't know a lot about, and I'm very unhappy with myself for not having engaged more with my mom about her upbringing, but she wasn't comfortable talking about it. So she grew up at Nazareth House in Yeovil with the nuns, and she comes from a family, I think she had 7 or 8 brothers. They were all farmed off to different foster homes. And from my understanding, it was a very violent, abusive family background that she came from. She remembers a time, and I remember Roseanne Barr was talking about something on television one day when my mom was ill. We were watching Roseanne Barr doing an interview, and how at the age of 3 she remembers having been molested. And I think it was Roseanne Barr. And I said, oh, that's ridiculous. How does anybody remember the age of 3? And my mom said, she had lost her voice at this point. She said, you can remember.
Mm.
You can.
You
I
can.
said, but what do you remember? She said, I remember blood everywhere.
Mm.
And then we were taken away.
Mm.
So never really discussed that actually. So she grew up with nothing, literally nothing, and then she married my dad, and that was also very challenging. You know, we come from a dysfunctional background. My father was an alcoholic and abusive, and but my mom was always very generous. People would just come knocking at the time where you could go knocking at somebody's door.
Mm.
And she
Mm.
would invite people in to say, come, and she would cook for them and she would give them groceries to take home. I remember coming from LA to be with my mom, and there were no curtains in the kitchen
Right.
because she met a waitress at a coffee shop at Bedford Center
Mm.
who had just moved into a new house
Mm.
or apartment, and my mom gave her the kitchen curtains. So we had no kitchen curtains. By the time my mom passed, she had nothing.
Right.
She gave away the sewing machine. She
Mm.
gave all her clothes. There
Mm.
was nothing. There was absolutely
Mm.
nothing. Even my
Nazareth
piano,
House. Sorry, please do
even
go
my
ahead.
even my piano was gone.
Right. Now, Nazareth House is one of the beneficiaries of blankets,
Yes,
and you and your sister Sharon
yes,
Barkhazen, who is a phenomenal supporter of the work that you do as well. Both of you had gone to visit Nazareth House to deliver the blankets that had been made by yourselves and others.
yes.
And you walked through that space. Talk us through just the emotions of walking through that space uh, that was your mum's home.
Yeah. So we got a beneficiary request form, which is the way we distribute blankets. We get forms people fill out. This organization needs 300 blankets, or these children need 42 blankets, whatever. And then, of course, a request came through from one of our ambassadors, Teresa Medhurst, requesting, I think it was 350 blankets for Nazareth House. Well, of course, of course, we're going to help Nazareth House. That's where my mom grew up. And we help. I think we are able to accommodate most of the requests that we do get, and found ourselves packing, bootfuls of blankets.
Mm.
And then going to Nazareth House, and lo and behold, Sharon's blanket was there. My other sister's blanket was there. She was also there, Colleen, and myself. And we were able to give, to find our blankets in piles of thousands of blankets.
Yes.
Amazing. And so I was able to give the blanket that I'd made, the very first blanket that I'd made, to an elderly person at Nazareth House, because they tend to the elderly as well as orphans. And then engaging with the young kids. And our mum always, on Sundays, apparently, according to my mum, people would come, the nuns would dress the children very neatly and prettily, and people would come and choose their children.
Mm. Mm.
And our mother would be there in her little frock going, pick me, please pick me. But nobody ever did.
Right.
So when I saw these young children, they wanting to come home with me, and I so wanted to take, these children home, and obviously that can't happen. But it was very, very emotional, because I saw my mom there as one of these children wanting to go home with the
Mm.
person that they'd taken a shine to. So,
Right.
um, yeah.
There's a book waiting to be told, to be written. The Blankets of Nazareth. The story of you going back to your
Yeah.
roots and tracing it, and just the warmth that comes out. But you've traveled around the country to some of the most remotest places and incredibly rural areas, and I've watched video snippets of you being honored and celebrated in very rural communities, because the blanket in African communities has a great deal of symbolism. It's given at birth, it's given at funerals, it's given at weddings, it's given as a token of friendship and loyalty. You want to talk about some of those really deeply uh, engaging moments that you've had in rural communities, sometimes where the spoken language that we have is not always adequate enough to be able to communicate, but the
Mm,
gesture and the emotions that people express when they receive blankets from you?
Mm. Well, what springs to mind immediately is going to Mpumalanga. We've got an ambassador by the name of Christine Similane, who's a teacher at the Danki Pina School, and it's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing, and um, these kids, she's taught them how to crochet, and when we get donations of wool, we're able to give to our ambassadors, to give to people who have the will but not the wool. And these children have, and some of them very young, they are crocheting. They make blankets, they make scarves for people who are even less fortunate than themselves, and
Right.
that I can't imagine,
Mm,
because they really come from nothing.
mm,
So going there, it is always a joyful, joyful, joyful experience. The kids wait at the gate. They sing, they dance, they put on a show. I have to paint my name on the wall, and it is the most wonderful, joyful, gorgeous, gorgeous experience. And I will go there time and time again. Those children are so beautiful. And Christine Similani, our ambassador in Mpumalanga, is doing an extraordinary job with them. Um, it's Ubuntu in action, as Yusuf Abramji would say.
absolutely, and I think it's an actual embrace of you as this great humanitarian, this great philanthropist, this great champion that makes things happen, but also connects the dots. But essentially, what you're doing is you're weaving our nation together with every single thread of wool that you do. Karen, you've been able to make sure that the blankets are collected and distributed far and wide through the wonderful support of Statifords.
Yes.
And I want us to talk about that because very often, you know, companies that do this kind of generous philanthropy work don't always get acknowledged, but you constantly do acknowledge Statifords for the
Yeah.
work. Yes.
Funny that I was on that page.
Right,
Stutterford Lines, they
right.
have done since day one. They were
Mm,
introduced to us by the Nelson Mandela Foundation. And since day one, they've transported thousands of blankets to each of our big activations, whether it be at the Union buildings or Zonderwater Maximum, bringing blankets from all across the country to one
right.
place, which would be 67 Blankets headquarters, which is our garage,
Yeah,
big, big garage, and then taking it to the place where the activation is going to take place, and then
right.
bringing those blankets back to headquarters so we can sift through them and, package them to go
Mm,
back to the ambassadors in the various regions around the country. And Stutterford Van Lines is there every single time, every single year. So I'm
mm.
saying to your viewers, if you're moving, Stutterford Van Lines, they are a company with a heart.
Absolutely. Carolyn, it's a great story. Just the way from one Christmas dinner to how such a wonderful movement has evolved over this decade. You've touched the hearts of so many people. You've warmed up our country, and finally, you produced a book last
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
uh, to commemorate the 10th anniversary, but more than anything else, it's you've documented narratives from people who've been involved in the journey with you. So it's not one person telling the story. You've drawn on multitudes of people who've been able to share. And I have a contribution in your wonderful book as well, talking about why your movement is so close to me. I cannot knit. I've had to hire somebody to knit my first blanket, which I contributed to you, the wonderful Carolyn Smart and Pauline Delice from Durban, and the home assistant, to do the book for the blanket for the movement. But it's fascinating reading the book because it's more than just a testimony from people who've been engaged with the project. It's got numerous amounts of pictures as well that actually show the excitement, the joy of people receiving blankets.
Mm.
Uh, but how important is this book as an archive of the work that you've done?
Mm. Well, first of all, let me show you the book. We'll show your
Absolutely.
viewers the book. I think that is the most gorgeous, gorgeous,
Cover.
colorful cover.
Yeah.
67 Blankets for Nelson Mandela Day, the Knitting and Crochet Revolution, documenting our 10-year history. How important? I think it's very important because, you know, what we've done in the past can easily be forgotten. And the things that we've done, those milestones that we've reached 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8, are so phenomenal. We don't want to forget our history. So this is a beautiful reminder of what we've done, what we've achieved over the past 10 years. And I think it's extraordinary. And it was written by David Gemmell. And, you know, I don't know how to fully put into words the absolute beauty of this book. So every year has pages attached to it with the story of what was happening in the world at that particular time. And so this is when we went to Robben Island. When we launched 67 Blankets in Cape Town. Oops. So just to give you an idea of, well, you know the book very well.
Yes. I mean, what is done is that every new chapter, every new page starts off with a moment in South African history,
Yes.
an iconic moment in South African history, and how the movement has responded to that in terms of the blankets and so forth. But I want to
Yes.
get back to this book because you actually put together a production manager or a production team that could have oversight as a liaison between you. You had a clear vision of what you wanted in the book and how you wanted it, but you had a production manager that liaised with the publisher. And so how important was that person, that middle person for you? And I'm asking you this question specifically in the midst of our Time of the Writer Festival, where we, for this entire week, have been engaging with organizations and young people who want to have their first book published, but they just don't know where to start. And often they're not sure of, should I write or should I get a ghostwriter? Should I get a project manager to do it for me? And you took an active decision with getting a middle person to work with you to manage the entire production of this book. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, for me, it was very, very important because this is not my field. Putting a book together is not anything that I've ever done before. And in terms of time as well, I needed somebody to be focused. So it wasn't just one person. Well, Brendan Greeley was our real point person who liaised with me and our exco and the publishers and the writer, etc. So I think very, very important, unless you know what you're doing, and unless you have the real time, I would highly recommend getting someone who knows what they're doing, who has a clear understanding of the processes involved, which are far too complicated for me to get to grips with. So our publisher was Blue Weaver Publishers. We had Patricia Crane, who compiled the book. And then when I got the rough copies, it was early in the process. And I was going through this. And, you know, I'm such a perfectionist. And, you know, my background is English teacher. So I was going through it with a very fine comb. And also you see what happened to that picture. There's this picture in my mind of the Stutterford Van Lines guy at the Union Buildings with a box on his head and blankets all around and the joy in his face. Where is that picture? I want that picture. So Yaku, poor Yaku, my assistant Yaku Lotta, Mr. Blanket, my right-hand man, had to sift through, I wouldn't say thousands of pictures, probably millions of pictures to find that picture. But that wasn't the only picture that, you know, I saw missing. So it was a massive process finding the right photographs, and also deciding what to leave out. So
How do you choose? Because that's the question that we all have. We all know what we want. But we want so much and we want everything and we want to put everything into a book. But the difficult question is, what is it that we cannot put in, and which may come in maybe volume 2, or which may present itself better on social media or in a documentary to follow, and so forth. So that difficult question of, I can't put that into this book.
Yeah.
And it's a painful decision. because
And I think
everyone in the movement is so close to you.
yeah, what helped me is having a team, having our Exco team, where we went through each and every single page. There's one particular photograph that they'd put into the book of me giving a talk at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and I hate this picture. I think I look awful, and I wanted the picture to go, but they voted no. This picture has to stay because this picture has something to say. It speaks 1,000 words. So eventually, I had to listen to the team, and for me that was a big help. That
Right.
it's not just Carolyn what she
Mm.
wants. It's
Yeah.
what does the team want? What is going to make everybody happy? We have to include each and every one of our ambassadors. How
Mm.
do we do that? Because we got about 54 ambassadors in South Africa alone,
Mm.
and then we have to include our international. Anyway, every ambassador is in the book.
Right.
And I'm just very grateful to the fact that I had those outside eyes
Mm.
uh, that were able to set me right.
And I
Because
think that becomes so much even clearer from your background as a theatre person. We know the importance of having a dramaturge and having a artistic director and a production manager, where each one comes with a specialist skill, so that you
mm,
end up with a kind of perfect production and a perfect project in this case here. When your book was launched, published, of course, came a series of launches. Do you want to talk to us about just the experience that you had going around the country to launch this book, the response from people who contributed, people who saw themselves in the book? Uh, what is the kind of responses uh, to that? Because it is wonderful for ordinary people who may have never thought that they would see themselves enshrined
mm.
in the book, suddenly finding a photograph of themselves or their contribution or their blanket or their story in there. What is the book launches like?
Well, first of all, let me just mention the fact that, we are in exclusive books. And I mean, who would have thunk exclusive books? My
Right.
goodness me. So the person that I have to thank for that is Helen Hollyoak, who you know,
Yes.
been
Wonderful
the
public.
liaison
Yes.
with Grattan Kirk and everybody at Exclusive Books. And so to see to see this book on a shelf at Exclusive Books. And at one point, we were part of one of the top 20 books on the bestseller list at Exclusive Books. Perhaps after this conversation, we might get back there. But very, very exciting. And I think very important, as Helen Hollyoak and Grattan Kirk from Exclusive Books would say,
Right.
you have to launch the book in bookshops around the country, because there's so much competition.
Mm.
There are thousands of books that people can choose from.
Mm.
And so going to Cavendish Square in Cape Town,
Mm.
to Exclusive Books in Durban
Mm.
and in Pretoria and Johannesburg was very, very important to bring about awareness and to have, and it's fun, you have your friends there, you meet new friends, and people come and, a couple of glasses of wine, a snack or two, and discussion about the book. And for me, it was very, very rewarding engaging with people that were buying the book and sitting behind a desk and signing the book. I mean, that was quite something.
Right. You mentioned Helen Hollyoak, who is the publicist and the driving force, and who submitted the book to the Time of the Writer Festival for us to consider for the festival. And very often, we feature lots of books on novels, and we do non-feature books that focus on the kind of narratives about South Africa and where we are at and so forth. And when this book landed, it was a very different kind of a book, in the sense
Yes.
that it's an archive of work. It's a kind of catalog of work. It's a combination of what you would find when galleries open with new exhibitions,
Mm.
the incredible pictures and that tell the story, that give you the background to the kind of artwork, and it's a multifaceted book. And we thought it would be incredible to have this conversation, both about the movement and your book. So I'm going to delve with a few more questions around the book. Helen has been instrumental in you said, in getting the book around and so forth. What is the relationship that you have with the publicist? And again, I'm asking you this question because when we engage with young writers this week, they're all very excited about getting the book, and every author can write a book, but not every author can market. How important was it for you, like you found a project manager, how important is it for you to be able to find that publicist who is able to take the book and champion it for you to where readers are, to where bookshops are, and so forth?
Well, without our publicist in Helen Hollyoak, we wouldn't be in exclusive books. We'd be selling it out of the boot of our car. So I think it's very, very important to find someone that believes in the project, believes in the book, and is willing to take it further and engage with people like yourself. And she's gotten me invited to talk at the Franschhoek Literary Festival as well.
Fantastic.
So
Well, I'm glad you got your first.
Right, extraordinary. So I mean, I'm just so over the moon. So I would really suggest to any writer, the relationship with a publicist, the relationship with people that are helping to put it's for me, it's very much a combined group effort, not just me. If it were just me, the book wouldn't exist.
Right. You constantly acknowledge the other people that work with you and who drive the process, but we do know that if it wasn't for the championing spirit that you have, we would not achieve as much as we did. And many of your fans and followers and passionate movement people are in the room with us and watching as well. So we acknowledge their presence with us in this conversation. So you're going to be going off to Franschhoek. What's next? Is there going to be a sequel to this book? Are we going to find the book about Carolyn Steyn? Are we going to find a book about all the multifaceted stories that you can tell? And what is that next book, if it is in your headspace already? Or perhaps it's a premature question, but maybe you can tease it out with us.
Okay, so look, I mean, putting a book together is not an easy task. It's blood, sweat, and tears. Even from the fact that I wasn't involved at the get-go with engaging with publishers, et cetera, I mean, the part that I played, we've got to have this photograph, we've got to I don't want to say that, I'd rather say that, and, spelling and punctuation. And then it was like going back to university, going back to school, grammar lessons, do you say it like this? Does the apostrophe come before or after? So where were we? What were we talking about? Oh, a book.
What's
oh, yes.
The next book.
I am busy writing a book. It's slow. It's about me, my life with Doe. Sometimes it comes in spurts, but I think it requires a lot more discipline on my part, that I must be at my desk at this time every day and work until that time. Without that, I mean, we could be sitting 2 years from now, I've still got a book in my head. So I am working on that. And something like this conversation inspires me to get back behind the desk. The fact is, we have put this book out, and that took a lot of time and took time away from my personal journey in life. And but in terms of 67 blankets, we are, and I had the meeting yesterday, we are putting together a documentary.
Fantastic.
With Cheeky Media, Yusuf Stevens, who's going to be producing. And I think it's going to be very, very, very exciting, because they've got some great ideas.
I'm going to move away from the book to the personal again. Throughout this conversation, you've mentioned Doe several times, your husband, and we know that he's been an incredible pillar of support for you. He's given you wings to fly and to take this project to where you want to. But he's also an incredible visionary himself. And you place yourself in that space where apart from the personal relationship that you have with him, the marital relationship, you are in the space where there's constant envisioning of new possibilities. And you want to talk about how he keeps you on your toes to be this dynamic person that you are, this writer, this activist, this champion, this major philanthropist, this person that is at opening nights of our theaters. And I'm going to talk about some of the support that you've given to the arts sector as well.
I have to say that Doe is entirely responsible for the fact that 67 Blankets exists. He has, as you mentioned, given me wings to fly. Without Doe, well, certainly without Doe, the challenge would never have been presented to me by Zelda in the first place. The fact that Doe had that very special father-son relationship with Nelson Mandela. So without Doe, none of this would be at all.
Yeah. There is a man, a visionary man, who's dreamt of creating a city,
Mm,
and he created Steyn City
yes.
with literally everything that a modern city could have. Do you think we're going to find those books sometime coming onto the shelves as well? And do you think you have the force and the power to push that pin? Because that's an inspirational book.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And few people have tried, attempted, have sat with Doe to get his stories, and it hasn't gone very far. But I agree with you. It would be an astounding book. The fact that this man can even dream of building a city. And this is about 23 or 4 years ago. I remember sitting with him many a night, 11 o'clock, and the PA had to phone the architects because Oprah Winfrey was with us, and he had to show the plans for the city. And I was, no, this can't be. I mean,
Right.
he's had a few to drink, and how does one man build a city? And I'd say to Madiba, he's talking absolute nonsense. Bill Clinton, Mr. President, please forgive him. He's just,
Right.
lost the plot.
Yeah.
But here we are, 23 years later. The city is alive and breathing. It is a real thing, with a school, with a city center, with thousands of people living there. And it's still another 10, 20 years in the making, because
Right.
and the city is 4 times the size of Monaco.
Yes.
Go figure. And it's
Yeah.
one man's vision that has been turned into reality. And I see my dreams aren't as big as Doe's, but he
Right.
has instilled in me, go big or go home.
Right. And you're not going to go anywhere other than where you are right now, because I
Yeah.
still have a few more questions for you. Uh, Carolyn, we are at the time of the Writer Festival, where we push the book, and we also try to encourage particularly young readers to pick up books and to read and so forth. You've also played a phenomenal role in promoting books that you've read through your
Mm,
social media pages. And
mm,
at one point, you even asked people to do a secret book gift, and it became almost a big movement as 67 Blankets. You want to
yeah.
talk about that power of the book, and how you keep referring to the book, the reading of the book, or the distribution of the book, and so forth.
Mm. Well, I've just finished. I have to recommend a book now, because you're at the
Please
university.
do.
And this is, I don't know if you've read it, Judi Dench's book, Shakespeare, The Man Who Pays the Rent.
Yes.
It is a beautiful read. And if you like Shakespeare, if you love Shakespeare, this is just it's a lesson in his plays. And,
Right.
I did an English degree at Wits University, and I haven't read Shakespeare since then. But now I'm wanting to go back to the classics,
Right.
reminding me of the plot line and how she approached a character, and with great humor. I can't repeat some of the things in this interview that she writes in the book, but incredibly funny. And also, I've just reread. I like going back to where I was. Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre. Those are books that I do like to revisit.
Yeah.
And I love reading. I find that reading is food for the soul. I like to pick up a book every morning,
Right.
and half an hour at the very least.
It's a fascination with words for you,
Mm,
whether it's the book or whether it's words on radio. But you also have this incredible passion for theatre, and right
mm.
now you're playing a role as kind of theatre producer. You want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, so I'm very excited about this, and it is a brilliant production. So Alan Committee approached me a few months ago, probably about 6 months ago, to say he wanted to bring Amadeus back to South Africa. Now, when I was a student at Wits, I saw Richard Haynes
Mm.
playing Salieri, and Ralph Lawson playing Mozart, and Terry Norton playing Constance. And I promise you, I went back to the Alhambra Theatre. There's even a picture of me as a young girl sitting on the steps at the Alhambra Theatre, at the Richard Haynes Theatre, and that must have been during the time of Amadeus. And I saw that production about 10 times. So when Alan mentioned Amadeus, of course, bells ring, and because I was so passionate about that play. To
Mm.
me, it's the finest play ever written. And would I like to come on board as a producer, and Sivan Gezi as well? And I thought, why not? I mean, I've never been really in that space, except another one, which is also very exciting. But let's
Right.
focus on Amadeus now. I went to Amadeus the other night, and I tell you, I cannot be more proud. The
Right.
production is riveting.
Mm.
It's beautifully directed, acted. We've got such, as you know, Ismail, incredible young talent in this country. And some of that talent is up on that stage at Peter Terrine's Theatre at Monte Cassino right now,
Right.
up until I think the 7th of April. And then they go down to Cape Town. I'm going to get on a plane and go to the Theatre on the Bay to watch Alan Committee play Salieri and Mozart. Oh, I forget his name now. Is it Aidan Scott?
Yeah.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I tell you, this performance
Mm. Mm.
is something else. Anyway, brilliant, brilliant production. I encourage
Right.
all your viewers to go and see Amadeus. Fly to
Fantastic.
Joburg if you're in KZN, or Cape Town.
Good.
Shall I
Carolyn,
mention the other one?
no, please do go ahead. This is,
So the
yeah,
other one is, what does the devil wear again?
the
Prada.
Devil's Prada. Yeah.
So it's been made into a musical,
Right.
music by Elton John,
Okay.
and Vanessa Williams playing the role of Miranda Priestley.
Right.
And I'm involved in that as well as a patron and investor in that show. And that's opening in October at the Dominion Theatre on the West End. So I'm very, I mean, who would have thought? I wish my mum were still alive today. She would relish in all of this.
I'm sure that your mum watches you from wherever her spirit soars, and she's incredibly proud of the work that you've done, not only with 67 blankets, but as a real champion for our nation. Where your work through 67 blankets has put us on the global stage with the Guinness Book of Records. Not only have you put us in the Guinness Book of Records, but you've also published your own book telling the story, and you continue to do so much more to champion and weave our nation together through the work that you do. Carolyn, we want to thank you for that. But before we log off, I'm going to ask our technicians backstage just to share some visuals with us of the work that 67 Blankets has done. And please feel free to talk over them as well as you see some of those visuals that strike memory. So we're going to go with the first visual.
Oh, that's the Union Buildings, where we've laid over 7,000 blankets on the grounds of the Union Buildings. This is me teaching, I think, at Leeuwkop Prison. I don't remember where that is, but one of our distributions. And that was in Alex, where Yasser Gotlo and I went to distribute blankets. And it's still Alex. Union Buildings. How is that for a picture, huh?
Absolutely. All covered in blankets.
Yeah. And there's Madiba smiling down on us all. This is at Drakenstein Correctional Center, where we created the biggest blanket in the world. We've got a Guinness World Record for this as well. I think it's 4 acres of blanket. This is Zonderwater Maximum Correctional Center, I think. I don't remember where that was, but I love that picture. Of course, the capture site in
Site.
where we got the Guinness World Record for the longest scarf in the world. Mrs. Michelle and Josina Michelle, her daughter, F.W. de Klerk and Thabo Mbeki's wife, Zanele, There they are again at the Saxon Hotel. That's Sharon and me with Madiba. And this is on a bridge where we laid out scarves around poles, etc., with Grâce Michel again. Oh, I don't know where that was, but that looked like I was busy. On the ladder at Nelson Mandela.
Now this particular picture on you on the ladder is quite important because you're always hands-on with what you do. You don't only delegate. You have a management team and a production team that sees through things, but you're also hands-on. You get your hands dirty. You sit on the floor. You move things around. You pick up things.
Judy Ditchfield working as well. Yes, I do like to be hands-on. I like to be with people and engage and accomplish and produce. That's at Nazareth House. That's at Nazareth House when we went. Nelson Mandela. The largest knitted blanket in the world was done at Nelson Mandela Square. That's at Drakenstein Correctional Center.
And several of these pictures can be found in the book, and also the narratives to these photographs can be found in the book as well. Carolyn, I want you to just talk to us about where can readers and people who've been following us at the time of the Writer Festival find your book? Where can we obtain your book from?
Okay, so we are at exclusive books countrywide, and in 2 weeks' time, Yaku has just organized this through Take a Lot. How's that?
Fantastic. So you'll now be able to get the book through Take a Lot as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. That's incredible. Carolyn, on behalf of the Center for Creative Arts at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, I want to firstly thank you for the humanitarian work that you do in our country, for being the real nation builder, for keeping the legacy of Nelson Mandela alive, and particularly in the 30th year of our democracy, to give us the opportunity to be able to reflect on his legacy, to be able to reflect on how he's inspired people such as you, but also be able to reflect on how you've been able to weave our nation together to be able to do good for others who are less fortunate. It's an incredible journey that you take us all on with your work, but it's an even more incredible journey that has been documented and archived, and one that could become a legacy for future generations of South Africa. But more than anything else, it stands out as a testament to other organizations that do philanthropical work in our country, that planning and organizational team, ambassadors, project managers, a whole team of people are an essential force that put together could turn philanthropy into a bigger movement that could bring about the kind of change and the transformative change that we want to see in our country. We wish you great success with the project. We wish you great success with the book. And we wish you great success at the Franschhoek Festival. We're incredibly delighted that you could honor our invitation just to be online. We're hoping that we would be able to host you in Durban at some time during the course of this year. You have been here to launch your book, but we're hoping that we would be able to have you in Durban as well. Many, many thanks for the work that you do and for the support that you give to almost everyone that calls on you to support the arts.
Thank you, Ismail, so much for the opportunity, for your platform, for your friendship, for your love, and you will see me soon. I promise you that.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Enjoy the rest of the day. And thank you to everyone who's joined us at the time of the Writer Festival. We continue this evening with live events at the Alliance Française in Durban at 6 o'clock and at 8 o'clock. And tomorrow, to celebrate World Poetry Day and South African Human Rights Day, we have a special program online. Catch us at our website or on the Time of the Writer Facebook page or at the Center for Creative Arts. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our funders and partners, the National Arts Council of South Africa and the KZN Department of Sports, Arts and Culture for supporting the Center for Creative Arts and the Time of the Writer Festival. Carolyn and viewers, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Ismail.
Thank you.